We'll go ahead and get started this evening. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting, Village of Morton. Today is Monday, November 25th, and our first order is roll call.
Guile.
Here.
Knapp. Smock.
Here.
Ritterbush.
Here.
Farrell.
Here.
Zobrist. Keach.
Here.
Fick.
Here.
DeWeese.
Here.
Quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Next order of duty this evening is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting. We had a meeting October 28th, 2019. Those minutes were included in the packet. Are there any questions, comments, alterations to those minutes? If none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Next up, we have public hearing portion. Prior to running through our public hearing, our counselor has a quick message for the public.
Thank you. Public hearings are being held tonight pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to make a comment to the Plan Commission will be afforded an opportunity to do so and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the Village Board. The Plan Commission makes recommendations only. The Village Board is responsible for taking final action on these matters.
Great, thank you very much. First ordinance this evening is an ordinance making amendments regarding the reduced side and rear setbacks on Chapter 4, Title 10 of the Morton Municipal Code. This ordinance was included. Substantive changes in these ordinances. There's 3 of them that we'll be reviewing tonight. All of them were new language or additional language was added as underlined. Where language has been changed, it's been struck. Brad, do you want to give a quick or a brief summary of this ordinance with regard to the basic justification?
So this is kind of cleaning up what really existed before. It's going to include a map. I think you have that map that shows
Yes.
the reduced inside rear. So for typical building setbacks, this allows a 25% reduction, which was already in our ordinance, but it was in a kind of it was a little gray. It wasn't quite clear. With Pat's help, I explained to him that when we have people come in, I explain that 25% reduction. There's really not a definitive place in the ordinance that I could just show them, and then the map also shows them exactly who falls within those districts.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, and Roger kind of had a map that I think had been handed down to him when he took the job on, and so one of the things with the help of Jeff Bedecker we looked to as a part of this ordinance was to modernize our map so it was legible and was included in the code and wasn't a hand-me-down.
So this map is the end result of basically years of just accruing data and knowing where these things are at.
Well, I believe that there was a prior ordinance that was referenced in the code, but it referenced conditions that existed at a given time, and there was a map made at that time, and
Things have
so
changed.
I think the map has been consistent, but it was hard to figure out what your points of reference were. It wasn't, of the quality that this map is.
The map that we had before did not have a date, and it was so old that street names had been changed. So we don't really know the date of which that map was originated. And this map is not any different. It just outlines it better, and it has current names. The map that Roger used.
Any questions from the table this evening regarding this ordinance? Hearing none, do we have a motion for making amendments regarding reduced side and rear setbacks to Chapter 4 of Title 10?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Motion's made. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Call when ready.
Keach.
Yes.
Fick.
Yes.
Ritterbush.
Yes.
Smock.
Yes.
Guile.
Yes.
DeWeese.
Yes.
Farrell.
Yes.
Approved.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have an ordinance making amendments regarding exceptions to the yard requirements on Chapter 4, Title 10 of the Morton Municipal Code. Again, if you want to walk us through briefly this conversation piece.
I'll
I'm going to let Pat take this. Pat
Yep.
originated this.
apologize for
That's fine, thank you.
Can you shift chairs?
So, as you may recall, we changed our variance ordinance some time ago to restrict the ability to do side variances within 6 foot of the property line. In a few areas in town, there are shared drives, and that creates some complexities when you have an approved shared drive and we don't allow pavement to go to the property line. In this case, later on tonight, there is a preliminary and a final plat for one of those areas along North Main Street, where there's a division being made of tracks where there is currently a shared point of access. And instead of reopening that variance issue and allowing a carved out variance in that instance, instead, in discussions with staff and in my own work on this, the ordinance before you tonight would create an exception to the yard requirements, allowing where we've approved there to be a shared drive for pavement to go all the way to the property line, so that there isn't a setback violation in the area where the lot is used for a shared means of ingress and egress. So it's kind of a derivative change that was born out of the change in your variance process, but it is intended to serve that purpose of accommodating shared drives where the village has approved that site plan.
Everybody understand the language here in front of you on this? Are there any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
A race. I'll let you choose that. Call when ready.
Fick,
Yes.
Ritterbush,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes.
Guile,
Yes.
Deweese,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Keach,
Yes.
approved.
Terrific. Last public hearing item is an ordinance making amendments regarding solar energy systems. This again to Chapter 4 of Title 10 of the Municipal Code. We've seen a couple of these things change here as we've seen more and more of these solar energy special uses come before us, and now the ordinance itself. Do you want to give us a quick run through on the change?
Yes, so as I continue to get more roof-mounted solar systems, we started a policy of asking for an architect's structural approved set of plans that shows that the roof can sustain the solar panels and the wind load that they present. With that being said, I've been questioned by certain solar companies that they were asking why they needed, if it was in the ordinance and such. Well, in our ordinance, we refer back to the International Code Council, which gives me that right to ask for that. But to kind of alleviate having to do that, I would like to just put this in the ordinance that it's a requirement to get the permit for the roof-mounted solar energy system. It's for the safety of the homeowner and residents.
Have you been able to determine during that process with some of these other contractors, is it an issue for them that they don't have? Because to me, it would sound like a lot of the things you're asking for are sort of a product of specifications that should be available on cut sheets. Is that not
Well,
the case?
you're right. Actually, the bigger ones, it's automatic for them. But now I'm starting to get homeowners that would like to
Okay.
put these on their houses themselves. So, which we do allow a homeowner to do that kind of work. But with that being said, I just feel like they should have a structural engineer look at their roof as well. So it's more homeowners and maybe smaller companies, I would say, are inquiring on that.
So primary changes, as you guys have heard here then, is to make sure that the engineering is allowing for wind and probably snow loads, et cetera. Any questions from the table?
So then you do an inspection, the village does an inspection after it's been installed?
No, we do not.
No?
But the
Okay.
structural engineer is stamping his approval, so if there's any kind of fault, it goes back to, he's the one that is bearing that liability.
And clarification, on residential installations, we don't do an inspection. It's a permitted
Yes.
job for commercial and industrial, and we do our ordinary electrical inspections as a part
Correct,
of those
electrical
jobs.
inspections do occur. That's under the electrical permit, but this is the actual building permit.
Okay.
So as a point of clarification, the structural engineering is checking the existing house to see if it can hold up
Correct.
the panels.
Yes.
That's the point of it. So
Correct.
because the additional dead load and live load. Okay.
Correct. Because we only allow it on the principal structure, so it's gonna go on the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have a question from a practical standpoint. So the homeowner would contact a structural engineer. I mean, is this something
Yes.
structural engineers do on a regular basis, inspect residential homes?
Yes, yes, to my knowledge, yes.
Okay. And any idea what the cost of that inspection?
I do not know.
Okay, I just didn't know if it ended up being cost prohibitive to move forward with it, or maybe
I've
it's
had-
something that's common.
Yeah, I've had one homeowner that has actually had that done. He's installing it himself on his own roof. I don't know what that cost him though. He did not share that
Okay.
information.
All right, thank you.
On the majority of requests that you have had time to review, however, you're saying that on many times the larger companies have this sort of handled already. They come down, do an inspection, and then they've already got it set up to put a stamp
Yes.
drawing into the packet.
Standard for them. The big one is Walmart will be installing solar.
Yep. Any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion on this ordinance?
I move that we approve this ordinance. Point number 3.
Thank you. We have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. Call when ready.
Fick,
Yes.
Ritterbusch,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes?
Guile,
Yes.
DeWeese,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Keach.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. That ends the public hearing portion of our meeting this evening. Moving on to other business, this evening we have preliminary plats for the subdivision of Lot 12. This is at the Morton Commerce Park. This is the lot that we were discussing briefly during the changes in ordinance to the shared drives. Do you want to run through this quick with us?
I was gonna say, if you don't mind, I have worked more on this than Brad has. So this is the proposed property division that kind of was the genesis of the ordinance, which you've recommended approval on earlier tonight. I would suggest that any approval of the final plat and preliminary plat would obviously be contingent upon approval by the village board of the ordinance, which you've recommended tonight. This is a division. There's essentially two structures on this individual lot. One of them is condoed, which is why you see a couple pins there on the plat. But fundamentally, what they're looking to do is split these two buildings onto separate parcels and continue to use the drive, which is in the center of the plat, for shared ingress and egress to each lot. The attorney for the property owners, Todd Bugg, is here tonight to the extent there's any questions for the developer, but the plats come to you as a result of review by staff, and I believe it's proposed plats are agreeable to staff, and which is why the ordinance came to you tonight to accommodate this request.
Questions from the table this evening regarding this preliminary plat. Note that if we do go ahead and approve, as council said, this will be approved contingent upon the trustees approving the aforementioned ordinance for the shared drive. If you guys are looking at the plat, you can see in the center between the two properties there is the ingress that we're essentially discussing. The subdivision, the preliminary plat here shows the subdivision lines running along the border. Looks like a roughly 3.8 acre tract to the north. Here marked lot 121 and about 5.45 for lot 122 down to the south. Any questions on this preliminary plat?
Is this saying that Lighthouse Automotive is going to purchase the north property?
No, there's a.
I noticed their name was on it.
It's actually Lighthouse Group, and it's not affiliated with
Yeah,
Lighthouse.
it's a
Automotive.
different company.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully Bart Rinkenberger reimburses you for the commercial. Any other questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion regarding preliminary plat of subdivision of Lot 12 for the Morton Commerce Park?
And if you wanted to save yourself a second vote, you could approve preliminary
Oh,
and
that's true
final
enough.
plat together as a part of one motion.
Contingent upon.
contingent upon approval of the ordinance by the village board.
I move that we approve the preliminary and final plats for subdivision of Lot 12 contingent upon the approval of the ordinance that we passed earlier.
Ordinance for amendments on the shared drive. Okay, we have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Call when ready.
Ritterbusch,
Yes.
Smock,
Yes.
Guile,
Yes.
Deweese,
Yes.
Farrell,
Yes.
Keach,
Yes.
Fick.
Yes.
Approved.
Great. Brad, are you clear on that, the way that was proposed?
Yes.
Terrific.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anything from trustees or from you?
The only thing I have is there will be a plan commission meeting in December, but it will be on December 16th
Early
because
one.
of Christmas, and it will be at 6 o'clock. And I will send out the agenda as soon as, next week. Should be next week.
Okay. So don't go anywhere. All right, if there's nothing else, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?